Thank you for watching and listening to the end-to-end security whiteboard session. Terms like endpoint security, SEM, firewall, and malware detection have been overused and even abused within the security community for years. They draw artificial lines in the sand, creating a perception that a siloed information security architecture is not only acceptable, it's adequate. This short talk is intended to provide some food for thought about the importance of an intelligent security architecture and why the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Let's first look at the elements of an enterprise workflow. First, we have the people. Now, of course, they're required in any organization, but you can't install any agents on them. The best you can do is educate everyone on the importance of proper procedure and policy. Next is the interface between the people and the networks. It might be a workstation, or it may be something more specialized, like a point-of-sale system, a healthcare modality, industrial equipment, or a trading terminal. These are the highest risk from a technology standpoint because there are more of them than any other category. They're often mobile, frequently used by more than one person, and perhaps not even owned by the organization, which is an increasing trend in cooperative groups and with BYOD becoming increasingly prevalent. After that, we have the internal networks. Often overlooked from a security appliance standpoint, but absolutely essential to provide an unbiased and unaltered view of the entire environment and either facilitate or limit the spread of information and unwanted and malicious content. Next, we have the lifeblood of any organization, the information stores, also known as the databases, housing client contact lists, regulatory information, research data, industry-specific information, and myriad other intellectual property. Now let's look at a typical attack pattern that initiates from an attacker outside your infrastructure. Many attacks begin by targeting an individual. A phishing scam is launched from the internet to an individual's email account. That individual clicks a link taking them to a malicious site and is then prompted for login information. The person uses their organization's credentials either for simplicity or because the scam appears to be from the organization. At this point, a few things happen. First, malware or other malicious code can be injected and installed onto the device the person used to visit the phishing site. The malware then begins to locate internal assets and try and break into them. Second, with stolen credentials, the hackers are able to log into internet-available portals to gain access to organizational resources. From there, the internal databases are logged into using properly authenticated accounts, and information is retrieved. That data is then sent to the attacker, either via the exploited end device or sent directly out of the network. Either way, the result is the same: data loss, theft, corporate espionage, fraud, and so on and so on. Now let's discuss how to stop it. Working in reverse, starting with the data loss, let's look at everything you'll need to help prevent this from ever taking place. First, you'll need a list of all known malware sites and blacklisted IP addresses. Then you'll need to get that list to all of your network appliances and ensure they have the ability to understand it and operate on it automatically. Next, you should have something looking at the endpoints that may be sending that information out of the network. Awareness is important, but prevention is better. Can the same element monitoring for malicious activity also prevent malicious communication? Finally, understanding what is being or has been stolen is also critical. So the ability to view the documents in transit, including analyzing relationships between record data, people involved in phishing scams, and the remote networks involved, are essential to help determine impact to the organization and to aid authorities in recovery and prosecution. Now, while all of this creates a solid data loss story, wouldn't it be nice to prevent your information stores from being raided in the first place? Doing so would negate the need for the data loss countermeasures from being invoked. That's why our next stop is to look at the databases. This is a more complex, multi-tier discussion. You need something closely monitoring sensitive information stores, looking at behavioral usage patterns, time of day, privileged access, etc. You'll also need the ability to keep a history of commands and queries run, and the ability to block and even revert unwanted and unauthorized access. Taking a half step further back, an even better safeguard is the ability to utilize shared credential pools, individually and group assign people to those pools, and track lists of people involved in phishing and malware and temporarily block their access to the credentials. Now we've discussed blocking, data exfiltration, and database breaches, but was it possible for the attack to be disrupted even earlier? As previously mentioned, the network itself is often underutilized resource for blocking attack vectors. One of the best ways to detect malicious activity in progress is to locate deviations from the baseline. Are there odd-hour connections? Is an endpoint connecting or attempting to connect to a server it has never talked to before? Is there a pattern of events that would indicate malware looking for a target? If these activities have been found, how quickly can they be isolated to their sources and targets and action be taken to shut that traffic down? Now, so far, all of these measures have been enacted based on the assumption that the exploit of a person's device was effective. But what if it wasn't? On the person's device, the ability to block malicious code from opening network connections, locking down exploit points, including Java, and monitoring and intercepting the installation of malicious code could prevent all of the other elements of the attack vector from taking place. Now, back further still, and to help prevent both the infection of a device and the use of stolen credentials to infiltrate public portals, is the ability to block the reuse of enterprise credentials on third-party sites and enforce a requirement to change passwords if a reuse is detected. Aside from all these measures, there's actually another method to help prevent data loss and device, network, and server impacts from infiltration, and that's governance and training. Almost all of these entry points could have been protected if an individual knew to check for the actual web address in an email, if they knew not to use enterprise credentials on external sites, and if they didn't leave passwords written down on a notepad at their desk, for example. Lastly, the ability to absorb information from every one of these links in the attack, assess data from the networks and all the servers, and create dynamic baselines as measuring points to more rapidly and accurately identify true suspicious activity is essential. It's all about end-to-end behaviors, looking for anomalies, ensuring patterns of isolated activities with commonality are correlated and treated as a single incident for the most accurate assignment of severity, impact, and to develop steps of remediation. Now take a look at the story we've laid out. Look at each element and each required functionality and ask yourself, are you more concerned about known or unknown threats? If the answer is unknown, then think about this. What's the potential impact of not having even one piece of one of these mitigation areas in place? The answer simply is immeasurable. If you're not looking at the whole picture, you're missing something, and even the smallest gap can be a costly impact to your clients and your brand. Thank you.